Our fan forum today is an ambush event with a difference, and we're here to talk about positive change. How do we enact change at the West Tigers? Guys, I just want to start off and really briefly talk to you about something that happened a couple of weeks ago. And I was sitting on my couch, and I'm pretty sure it was towards the end of the Broncos game. And I've followed Balmain since I was about 7 years of age, and embraced the West Tigers, became a member of West Tigers, and I follow West Tigers passionately, weekly, wholeheartedly, ever since. And I sat in the lounge and I looked up at my wife and I just said, what's the point? Why do I keep doing this? Where is the fun in this? Where is the joy? There just seems to be mistake after mistake after mistake by so many people for so long, and nothing seems to be changing for the positive. And I reckon for the first time ever, I genuinely questioned my passion on an ongoing basis for West Tigers, and I've never done that. The West Tigers has been a part of my life, but at the moment there just doesn't seem to be an answer. But we've got to be better than that, right? We've got to be more positive than that, and we've got to find an answer. It's the only way you keep moving. And so hopefully today we can do that. So I'd like to open it up with just your emotional thoughts right now on being a West Tigers supporter. How are you feeling today, 2023, about being a Tiger? Can I start with you?
Yeah, look, it's, I don't know, it's similar to what you said there. I was a Balmain supporter all my life, and obviously grew up in Campbelltown, so it was a nice transition there. But yeah, it is. It's week in, week out. It's disappointment. It's the butt of all the jokes. It's, watching, your mates back winners and you don't. So, yeah, I don't know. It's always been, I guess, we've seen them buy players at the end, back end of the careers and take the money and, all that kind of stuff. And I don't know, I guess, everybody talks about Pascoe and all that from the top. And I guess I don't have the answers, but yeah, I don't know. Got to be positive, I guess. That's all. Just keep doing the same thing.
Keep doing the same thing. Yeah, I understand it, mate. I understand. It's hard. What about if I come over here? What do you think at the moment? What are your emotional thoughts on being a fan at this point in time?
Same. I've been a Balmain supporter and a West Tigers supporter, and after the Bulldogs game, I think I shed some tears. I'm sick of going to work on a Monday and copping it from the Parramatta and the Penrith supporters. I don't have a magic answer or the magic wand, but I love this club. And when I felt like I'm going to give up, which would be never, I always think my dad's passed and his last words were never forget and never lose the faith. So I've got to live by that. So I will never lose the faith, and I'll never lose the love for the Tigers.
Yeah, awesome. Who else would like to make comment on how they're feeling right now about being a West Tiger? Anyone? Yep, this gentleman over here.
Hello, everyone. I'm just thinking that there are only two clubs that have the fans and members have an input, and I think if we could set up a link there and not have the disassociation that we have at the moment. What you guys doing today is the start to that, and you're going to have a meeting with Mr. Pascoe next week, right? So through these independent kind of podcasts that are being created, I think it's the honest voice that we can have. Where that goes, I'm not sure, but I think having more of an all-encompassing kind of West Tigers group, including the fans and the members, I think it only helps that communication. I guess we'll see where it goes from there. It doesn't necessarily mean a top 8 spot, but it means more of a family environment for the West Tigers instead of all the nonsense. So that's pretty much it. Go the Tigers.
I think that's a big part of it at the moment, that kind of disenfranchised feel that a lot of the fan base has. I think your points are really valid, because I think most of the fan base at the moment feels a disconnect with where the club's heading and with the management of the club at this point in time.
Okay, so that's a good segue into our first sort of topic. We've got 3, maybe 4 topics to talk through. One is governance, second is operations, and the third is football. So we'll start off with governance. Governance is all around the club's vision, its strategic plan, the direction the club's taking, and the way the board and the chair of the board roll out that vision, mission and direction. Who's got comments, questions, thoughts on the way we're being governed at the moment, the governance structure, the direction of the club, the vision of the club and where the club is heading? Who'd like to make comment on that?
Thank you. My name's Robert. I've been a fan since 1966, so I guess I'm used to this kind of thing. As far as my concern, and the reason I'm here is because I am very concerned about the way the club is heading overall. And I do believe that a lot of it has to do with the year 2000 when Balmain and West Magpies were forced into this merger. And I'm afraid to say my opinion is I think it's now bearing fruit that it's failing. You only need to look at the other 2 failed mergers, the Manly and Norths. I bet you they're breathing a sigh of relief that that doesn't exist anymore. And St George is just like us, just going from problem to problem, and there appears to be no way out. Now, I want to make this constructive. I do believe that a board has a responsibility to look into the reasons for this failure and to act accordingly. Things like having 4 stadiums. We all know these things. It just doesn't work. You get 3 games a year here, and I'm a local from this area, and I love this area, but the West Tigers just aren't connecting. We have more kids and adults from this area who follow other clubs. So we need to look into the reasons for the divide. We need to have 1 stadium. We really need to look at whether we bite the bullet and divide back into the Balmain and West. It's just not working, and I believe the board has a responsibility to do something about it.
Cheers, mate. Thanks for that. I think that's interesting, that whole concept of supporter base and the kids out here. This decade, I don't think we've seen the negative results of this decade yet. I think we're going to see that in 5-10 years' time when the supporter base is not what it is today. Because, you know, I know, if I just use my kids as an example, they were absolutely rock solid, you know, supporters. They couldn't care less anymore. And young people don't follow people that aren't winning, right? It's just the way it is. And we're not going to have that I don't think we're going to have that huge numbers of people in love with the Tigers like we do now, because the younger generation won't associate any success with the club. That's just my opinion. What about the board and the chair? How are they running things? How are they performing? What are your thoughts on their governance and the direction they're taking the club in, and more importantly, your understanding of what they're doing? Do we have any comments around that?
Yeah, hey everyone. My name's Tim. I've supported the Tigers since, I guess, 1984 when I was fresh out of the womb. So I've seen some good times, but experienced the bad times as well. I guess on the board, there's probably 2 things as a member of an organisation. Is the first thing is that as a member of an organisation, we don't seem to have any input into who represents us. I know there's some complexities around the board structure of the West Tigers, and I get that. But as a paying member for an organisation, generally speaking, you have some sort of voice. And the voice, you have a voice, and you also have an ear. And at the moment, I don't feel we have any. When I say we should have a voice, we should have some sort of voting rights or something, whether it's through us as individuals or whether members can vote a representative to either sit on a board or a subcommittee or something like that, so the fans and members' voice is actually there at the table, is one idea. And when I say we don't have an ear, we don't know anything. We don't see any published minutes of board meetings. We don't see any financial reports of the West Tigers. I understand, I'm also a Leagues Club member at West Ashfield. I get those AGM reports. We don't see them for the West Tigers. They might be somewhere, but I think they're hard to locate. So I feel we don't get either of those things, which as a fan, it creates distrust because we're not seeing that transparency. And then also, it doesn't give us a voice. I mean, we talk about a merger. I came from the Balmain side, but I, for one, have moved past that and feel we are one club. But I know in 1999, I was only 15, and I didn't get a chance to stand up to do what I should have done for my club then. I'm a bit older now, and I feel that the people that are running this club aren't running it correctly. And as someone that's older, as we see people in this room, we have a responsibility to ensure the future of our club is going in the direction we want it to be. And ultimately, what that comes down to for me, it's not about winning or losing, it's about having an identity and having an understanding of our communities and our communities looking up to this football club. And if you guys out here are saying that they're non-existent, they're not here, then I'd say the people that are running the club aren't doing it correctly.
All right, awesome. Thanks so much for that. Yeah, round of applause. That's good. That's good. You mentioned identity, and we hear all the time, you know, and I think, you know, to give credit where it's due, I think quite rightly that we are financially quite strong now. We've got the Centre of Excellence in place. The club is quite stable off the field, is what we're hearing, and you know, we do see that. But you're mentioning lack of identity. Are we heading in the right direction, in your opinion, as fans and members of the club? Are we going towards where we should be going?
I think the last couple of weeks have really proved that this club doesn't have the best handle on a lot of things that get out into the wider world. We've seen social media especially. We had a really amazing social media manager in Dan who provided us with really great insights into what was happening in all levels of the club, through from the junior years, the girls' pathways, all the way through to even game day tweets throughout the game where he would keep fans updated with the score. Now we're lucky to get a half-time and a full-time post about how the game's actually going. We're lucky to get anything about the pathways. If we're really true about connecting with our identity, it needs to start, as a few people have already said, from the kids who are a knee-high to a grasshopper that are starting to run around with the logo on their jerseys as part of the MacArthur group or the Balmain Pathways groups, and it's just not there. I had a few things. I now have lost my train of thought. Maybe, Steve, go to somebody else and I'll come back to it.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Anyone else? We're going to wrap up the governance chat. So anyone else want to make any comment around the governance of the club or the strategic direction the club's heading in?
Yeah, one thing I heard Tim's comments about having a members voted board. I think for me that's a little bit an outdated system, especially where we're privately owned by West Ashfield. But what I would like to see is professional manners put in around how we engage our board members. So a proper recruitment process, engaging with an outside recruitment organisation and coming up with criteria about what we're looking for in our board and the expectations of the person who's in that role at our club. At the moment, now we had Simon Cook leave the other day and we announced on the same day who his replacement was. And having a look at John Doherty's experience, he looks like he has a really good background for the board. But from the outside looking in, as supporters, we don't really get much understanding of what they're looking for on the board and what people are adding to the board. And we get a little bit of a blurb when someone new joins, but for the guys who are already there, we don't really have much of an understanding about why they are the best people to be leading our club forward. And I think that's a big issue at the moment. It's not a big issue when you're winning football games, but at the moment we're not winning football games. So I think it's really important to have a sound understanding of what the people who are running our club are actually adding to our club.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. Okay, so let's move on. Let's move from governance into operations. So as you guys would be aware, the board sets the strategic direction of the club and then hands that strategic direction down to the CEO, who's Justin Pascoe, who with his operations team then enact the strategic plan at an operational level. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the way the club runs its operations. And we're talking about stuff like fan engagement, fan satisfaction, the amount of trust we have in the organisation as fans, the management, how well the managers are rolling out the operational direction, the standards that have been set and adhered to, and getting the details right and having everything functioning effectively. How do we think the club are going at an operational level? Do we have any examples of the way the club is going operationally? Do we have any suggestions for improvements for operations? Who'd like to make some comments here?
Hi, my name's Sal. It's just a bit of a whinge. Like, I'm a pretty keen member. I'm always listening to all the podcasts that I can and go to all the games and watch every game. We actually put in my diary when Wests are playing, and we have our social time around that. But I've noticed that even, I think it was last week, I didn't even realise we were playing here this week. There's a big sign up on the corner on the field up here. There's a sign on Narellan Road and Bagdally Road. Doesn't even have the date and who we're playing. It's just got something about the Tigers. So I find that they're not pushing enough to say that we're playing here, there, or whatever. Especially out here, like we were saying before, that we really need to get more people involved around here, more as locals.
Especially when you're playing at 4 different grounds in a season.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
in the old days, you used to know you pretty much every second week you're playing at home and you'd go along to home ground.
Yeah.
But at the moment, we play at so many grounds, it's very hard for people to connect with and just make it a routine, and that's a big issue at the moment too, I feel.
Well, they used to have it up on the corner here that, who we're playing, what time we're playing, and have it everywhere. Like back in the day where there was newspapers, it'd always be in the newspapers. We've got social media now, which is easier to spread around and get to more people, but it's just not happening. So unless you're a keen member or a fan, you really don't know what's going on.
Other comments around operations?
Yeah, it's also today they've got a signing session at 7 p.m. tonight. The email went out on Tuesday evening in their email. There hasn't been any further mention of it. There's nothing on socials. There's nothing pushing the fact that at 7 o'clock tonight they've got a signing session at the club afterwards. There doesn't seem to be that engagement with the fans or with the members.
Yeah, I've been saying for a long time, and I'm not talking out of school here either, because I've spoken with Justin about this, and I've spoken with Lee Hadjimattalis about this as well. And if you listen to the podcast, you'll hear me bang on about it all the time. And it's just that attention to detail. We don't seem to pay any attention to getting those details right. And when you get those details right, what happens is you end up with standards of excellence, right? Because you're looking at every detail of the organisation. We don't have that. That's a classic example, right? No one knows it's happening. And then it'll be a failure and we'll wonder why, okay?
We have the centre of excellence. Why aren't we working from a centre of excellence? Why aren't we moving from this is where we are and this is what we expect? It seems to be way down here instead of way up here.
Fair point.
Yeah, hey, so from an operations point of view, as far as the staffing and organisational structure, I guess, goes, and don't get me wrong, I'm a big fan of Tim Sheens. I know he hasn't had much success already this year, so it's nothing personal against him, but just from organisationally how his appointment arose, Tim Sheens, from my understanding, was hired to conduct a review of the football department and conduct a review of the head coach. Now, he did that review, and his job was to find the best coach to replace Michael Maguire, and the person conducting the review appointed himself to that spot as a coach. Now, to me, that doesn't seem very professional and doesn't seem very clear as to how that decision came to bear fruit, other than Tim Sheens just appointing himself. Or, if we're to believe the media, Phil Rothfield came up with that idea, which as fans, who are, you know, probably sickly addicted to the game and keep watching these news stories. We hear that week in, week out. Now, no one from the club has ever come out and refuted that. And I think organisationally, it would be good of the club to come out and say, this is exactly how Tim Sheens was hired. Tim didn't hire himself, or maybe he did hire himself, but I think as members, we should be allowed to know how that worked. And also, did it happen at lunch with Phil Rothfield? Because the club could hit that on the head and quickly just say, hey, that didn't happen. And the one other thing I'd just say on this, Tim Sheens refers to himself as still being director of football sometimes, but also the head coach. Well, which one is it?
He's both.
Yeah, and from an organisational and an operational viewpoint, is that really the way modern sporting organisations are run, that the head coach is also the head of football? Because then who does he report to?
So can I just pick up on a point you made there? Like, you've made a few points there, some really good ones, right? Just around that media, the whole media thing. I don't know if other people noticed it, but there was talk last week about Cooper Cronk and Sam Walker at the Roosters, right? Now the Roosters came out in the media and they hammered that within like minutes. Like that was put to bed within a minute. No, that's not true. And Robinson said it, and also one of the past players said it, and Luke Keary came out and said it, and it was just like 1, 2, 3. That's a load of rubbish. Bang, and it was dead. It was dead in the water. It was so professionally handled. We get absolutely pasted in the media, as you know, non-stop. Do we handle that well? Do you have any thoughts on how the club could react to the way the media expose us or talk about us? Any comments on that?
Does the media talk about us? Really?
Apparently.
I'll tell you how we don't do it. It's not via Ask the Boss. Exactly. I mean, what other sporting franchise or organisation in this country has their CEO coming out monthly with a vodcast of questions that no one asked him? All he's doing is he's using that as a matter of self-protection. He's getting Chris Heinington to ask him questions about whether he should be under pressure to hold his position or not. I'll tell you how he could hold his position better is 1, engage with us better, and 2, do his job better.
So how do we think the club, because I can tell you how Ask the Boss came about, and it was through...
It's your fault, Steve.
It was through a members' working group where we actually said to the club we put questions out on social media and then collated all the answers to that, and then took it to the club and said people are feeling they don't get information from the club. There's not enough good communication, and Ask the Boss then came from that. Okay, now maybe it's been done well, maybe it hasn't been done well.
The problem is he's asking the questions. They should retitle it Asked by the Boss, not Ask the Boss, because he's the one asking all the questions.
So that concept could work if he was answering rather than asking.
Totally. People love the content, and the Tigers have got that new, is it Behind the Roar? The podcast is great. And some of the video stuff, fantastic.
Well, it's the second best podcast out there.
Of course. I don't think I said the best, but I concur totally. People want that, but it could be done so much better. It will be so much. I'm sure there's players that have talent as far as communication go that want to be in the media in the future. Let them do it. Let someone from our media team do it. And it just reeks of Justin Pascoe self-protecting himself. And I think for me, the frustration we keep getting is that our chairperson and our CEO are there for themselves and not the club.
One of the things that Steve and I have spoken about to come out of what we're doing today, we're going to make an offer to Justin Pascoe for Steve and I to sit down and do an interview with him. Our condition on that interview is that we're allowed to ask the questions that fans want asked. We're going to ask them in a respectful way, but we are going to make that offer to Justin that Steve and I sit down with him and do a little bit of an interview where those questions and those difficult questions are raised in a respectful manner. Hopefully, something can come out of that.
Cool. I just wanted to add a few more things around the whole attention to detail that I've noticed, even just in the last couple of weeks, but have really been flowing through for too long. So the first one, Yodi and I noticed at the Parramatta game last week, where at halftime they brought two supporters onto the field to do a bit of a catch the ball situation. One was a Tigers supporter, one was a Parramatta supporter. The Parramatta supporter one was given a signed jersey that he then mocked, throwing it on the ground and stamping it in front of a stadium full of what should have been more full of West Tigers supporters at the time. So just little things like that. But also this week, members can collect their cards of the players. This week it's David Nofaluma, who hasn't been named this week, let alone the last 2 weeks as well. There's also the Ask the Boss episode that was released the other day, has Justin interviewing Brett Comorley, who was talking about the new NRLW team, and he mentions just really casually that the Curtin Girls have been signed with the NRLW team before anything has come out from the club. That could have been released tomorrow, after the girls have had their moment to shine today, where they do the big announcement, the big social media stuff. So there's that. There's the issue with Benji's entry on the wall of the Centre of Excellence, where he apparently won a premiership with the Dragons. The Anzac jersey, let's not even go there, because that was just from the very beginning. It was handled extremely poorly. Justin should have come out the second that hit the media that it was wrong with a media release and said, yes, we made a mistake, we're working on fixing it, rather than leaving it 72 hours before anybody from the club actually came forward. The incorrect spelling of names of players in social media posts, the incorrect spelling of the term Wests Tigers I've seen as well, not using all of the club colours in posts, and just further adding to the division that we see amongst Balmain versus Magpies, even though we've been around for how long now. So it's just, if those little things aren't being looked after, then exactly, it's attention to detail. It then just accumulates, and if there's no one being held accountable for this level of excellence from the bottom, then how is it going to filter up anywhere and really change what we're seeing?
Okay, thanks, Kelly. So we're going to move on to football now. Before we do, are there any other comments around operations within the club? No? Okay, so let's move on to footy. So what we want to talk about here, and guys, you can talk about anything you like, but some dot points that I've written down is to talk about and give some feedback on our recruitment and retention, our coaching structure, our coaching history, our on-field performance, and I've written down this one is that our football culture, which to me is we are just in this pattern of failure. And I'll just start off by saying, I reckon this season could have been a whole lot different if at that 20-minute mark in round one, we'd made the tackle and the Titans hadn't gone down the left-hand side against the run of play and scored after we'd put in 20 minutes worth of good effort. Because what I reckon happened, we've had 10 years of failure. There was all this really positive talk about how we're going to go this year. The first 20 minutes we were playing really good football and it looked like that was actually going to eventuate. Something went against us, against the run of play. They went downfield, scored, and it was like the whole of the Tigers' army on the field, off the field, just let out this groan and thought, here we go again, and we haven't lifted our heads since that moment. I actually honestly believe if that hadn't happened, things could have been a lot different. How are we going on the field? Today, yesterday, tomorrow maybe, this afternoon?
Thank you, brother. This is only a quick comment, but we've won 5 out of 12 halves of footy this year. We just haven't won a single game of football. We won 5 out of 6 second halves this year. So we're a lot closer than it seems at the moment. It's unfortunate we don't have 2-3 wins on the board, because that'd be half or not more of the victories we had last year. And our attitudes would be really different if that was the case.
So if that's the case, if you know, because I agree with you, right? Like we've said that on the podcast that we're not. There are moments where it actually looks quite promising. If that's the case, why are we 0 wins this year? What is going wrong at a football level?
You just look at life, man. Sometimes shit happens. Like sometimes you're pushing crud uphill. And that's what we've been doing. We've fallen behind early in games and we've won those second halves, but it just hasn't been prolific enough to take those 2 points.
I think that's a key point. You spoke about the hedge dropping from that 20th minute in that first game. I think we get our head back up for the start of most games. I think that first 20 minutes in most games we've been quite competitive, but we haven't been able to get over the try line. And then the opposition usually goes down and scores a fairly easy try down the other end, and then all the floor falls out of the team. And I think that's a big issue. I actually think today, if we can get a try in that first 20 minutes, we're a chance of actually pushing Manly. But I think that first 20 minutes is really crucial at the moment, and we're doing enough through the forwards and getting good field position, but we're not taking advantage of that field position at the moment. And I think if we can take advantage of that field position in the first 20 minutes, things could start to turn around.
I think the problem is we've forgotten how to win. We've had so long since we last won that we've forgotten how to get over that white strip. You know, but there are promising things. We're in front. We've got the most metres in the opposition 20 of any other team.
Part of that is we don't score when we get down there.
I was just about to say, we just don't get over that white strip. We've forgotten the white strip.
What's the reason for that? Is it recruitment, retention? Is it culture? What is it, Brett?
No, it's pretty easy. The job of the forwards, the backs, all that, they get them into the 20 metre, 10 metre from the try line. It's up to the halfback to then get them over that stripe. Why isn't the halfback doing his job?
Okay. Thanks,
Mate,
Brett.
Mate, you took the words right out of my mouth. Spot on. Look, the table doesn't lie. We can say whatever we like, but the tail of the table shows that there is a gap presently between us and the other clubs. And they're all getting stronger. There are positives. Our forwards are holding their own and doing very well. And that's a good thing, because this time last year that wasn't the case. We've got some really promising young guys coming through who are really doing well. That's also the case. Then I come back to your point. It all boils down to the halves being swapped around willy-nilly from week to week when there should be consistency. I believe that Sheens has to bite the bullet and stick with a pair. Now, he had that problem with AD, who was playing very well when he was injured. But now all we've got left is two halves. And as you said, without that little bit of making gaps and running through and directing, then we're getting up there and we're not converting. So I hope he sticks with Brooks and Wakeham for a few weeks and allows the back line to just get used to each other, and maybe then we might see the gap just close a little bit. But there is a gap between us and the other clubs. The table does not lie.
So just to throw something in there, apparently right now across the road, Dane Laurie is playing halfback in reserve grade, not 6. They changed it and put him in at 7 in halfback too. So whatever that means, I don't know. Hey, Tim mentioned a few minutes ago Phil Rothfield and the great coaching decision and changing from Serraldo into Benji and Tim Sheens. Well, how do we think coaching is going? Is our plan a good one? Do you think it's going to work? Is it too much risk? What do you think?
Oh, it's definitely risk, but I think a few players have said they've been surprised of Benji's knowledge of the game and a motivator, and he's played for a lot of good coaches, Bennett. So I think he's got the right experience, but yeah, it's that's still 18 months away. So hopefully Sheens can flick the switch and we might find a bit of form.
Okay, so any other comments around our performance on the field or from our football department? Any suggestions, any thoughts from anyone?
Nothing to do with what you just said, but I just want to have a bit of a gripe. Now, this young fella over here's got all signatures on his cap. Can anyone tell me what all those signatures are? And his jumper, yeah. We don't know who they are, most of them. I've got heaps of stuff at home with signatures on them, but no idea who they are. I keep putting it to when I see Pasco and Scando and all that, telling them to put their club numbers on there when they sign it, so we know who it is, because that cap's probably worth $1 million now with the numbers on it.
You better sell it, mate.
Yeah. So that's my gripe. I got to go. So thanks for today, mate.
Okay, let's wrap this up now because we want to head over to the game. I just want to give you the opportunity, as we said at the beginning, we are going to send this in recorded format to the club, and we are going to post it on socials in recorded format. If you could say one thing, one plea to the club, what would it be? A bit like the pod, one word, or maybe one sentence, one phrase. What would be your plea to West Tigers at the moment? Who's got one?
Win some games.
Win some games, he says as he walks out the door and heads over the road. Yeah. Yes, mate.
Bring Noffo back.
Bring Noffa back. I'm sure Noffa would love to hear you saying that.
I went to the thing on Monday, and then I went to the thing on Monday, and then I met Laurie, and then he said, "Tell Shane to put me back in."
Did he? At halfback, 5'8", or fullback?
Fullback, 100%.
100%. Okay. I'll tell Charlie Staines and the other fella. Yeah. Okay, one plea, guys. Let's finish up with one plea. If you've got one opportunity to say something to the club, what would it be?
Yep, to the chair and most of the board, give somebody else a turn.
Okay, change at the top. Change at the top. Anything else?
One home ground.
One home ground. Anyone else?
Support the social media content.
Support the social media content. Awesome. What else?
Yeah.
Perspective. Think how the supporter will think, not how your big heads will.
Right. Think how the supporter will think.
Not only
Interesting.
that, excellence starts at the top. Winning begins on Monday.
Winning begins on Monday and excellence starts at the top.
Please engage more with our communities.
Engage with communities. Anything else?
Yeah, don't give up on us.
Right, don't give up on us. Yeah, the club needs to value its fan base. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, us the supporters, and yeah.
Yeah, and you know, think through the idea that we were supporting the club before most of these guys at the club were part of the club, and we'll be there forever. Yes, mate.
Just remember 2005.
Just remember 2005. What, we can do it. Is that your point? We can do it.
We've never been so proud of supporters and fans since 2005. Our chests were out.
Yeah.
We put them out there.
Let's get back to that culture, that belief.
It's never been there since then. It's disappointing. It's frustrating.
Can I just add to that, though? It is 2023, so it is great to still remember 2005, but it can't be everything that we remember. We need to start creating or continuing the legacy by bringing back the feelings that we had in 2005, but we're not just relying on the feelings from 2005.
Okay, and with that, we'll wrap it up, guys. Thank you so much for your engagement this afternoon.